Hi, everyone. I am Pragya Lohani. I lead a platform product management team here at Workday, and I am very excited to invite you all to join the session on emerging leadership. We have some incredible speakers lined up, and without wasting any more time, I'm actually going to hand this off to our first presenter, Jeannette.
Well, hello and good afternoon to all of you who have been at this conference. I hope you've heard some amazing speakers because I know that I have. I'll just introduce you briefly to who I am. So Jeannette Grace, I own Expressive Communication Consulting and Training, and I've had my business for over a decade, but I've been in the communication and training world for well, a very, very long time, over 25 years. And I'm super excited today to talk about creating joy with G Factor, since the theme of the conference is elevate joy. So we're going to talk about what can you do or how can you use G Factor to create joy for others, but to also create joy for yourself. And we're going to kick it off right here with babies, because babies bring joy, at least for most of us. Babies seem to really create a lot of joy. And what I know about babies is they have this real natural ability to draw people to them. And those people could, they could be family members, they could be perfect strangers, or they can even be a dog when you're out for a walk with a baby. But there's something about them that just makes us feel happier, makes us feel joyful. This baby happens to be me many, many years ago. And I have been someone who has always wanted to create more joy in people's lives. And part of that was being curious about human behavior. What makes people do the things that they do? What makes them think certain ways? What makes them say certain things? So this curiosity about human behavior carried with me all the way into my career. What I noticed in my career after a lot of years is that there were some people that I absolutely loved working with. There were leaders I wanted to work for. There were people I wanted to be assigned projects with. There were certain teams, certain organizations, companies that I wanted to work for. And then there were others, not so much, right? It's that person who passes you in the hallway and you kind of look down at your phone like you're busy because you don't want to strike up a conversation with them. So I started to notice is that there were people that would draw me to them like a baby, and then there were people that would repel me. And because of that, I started to develop this concept of what I call G factor. So what is G factor? G factor is your gravitational pull. It's what you have that draws other people to you. And what you see on the left side of your screen right now is a QR code that you can go ahead and use that. It's a free G factor assessment. I'll pop that up here a few more times throughout this 15-minute presentation, but you can pull that up. If you have, I will say this, sometimes for it's a tech conference, sometimes with iPhones, this QR code doesn't actually link. So if you need that assessment, you can go to Expressive CCT, so Communication Consulting Training, expressivecct.com/style-quiz, style-quiz. All right, so had this concept of G factor, right? How do we create this gravitational pull? And I had some pretty good ideas from, studying communication, from studying psychology, but I was also smart enough to know that my ideas alone probably weren't enough. So what I did is I set out to survey over 800 people, people like you, people like me, working professionals. And I essentially asked the question, what makes you want to work with someone? What draws you to someone in the workplace? And that's how this idea of G factor, this gravitational pull, really was born. And I took all of that information and that data, and I was able to identify 8 secrets to increasing your gravitational pull at work. And I took that information and I put it into a book first. And I published that book over 5 years ago, or about 5 years ago. And I've been sharing this information and helping people create more joy at work through workshops, 2-day workshops, through, our keynotes. But what happened is I realized that more individuals wanted to get this information. It wasn't just teams of people or leaders in organizations. So I developed a deep dive digital course that's specifically geared toward leaders, and then also just a mini course that's for anyone, because I really wanted to make this more accessible. Because remember, I've always been the type of person that wants to create joy. So if I can share this, I want to share it. So here's the number one secret out of all 8 secrets. It is gratitude. And it is about showing our appreciation. If you were thinking, really, Jeannette, that's number one, it seems so simple. I would say, you know what, you're right. It does seem pretty simple. But the fact is, it's not happening as frequently as it could be happening. People in the workplace are craving gratitude. And I'm going to share some information with you, some other research that helps you understand why it's so important in the workplace and how it can help to create more joy. But before I do that, what I want to talk about are excuses. Because even though gratitude may sound simple, we know it's not happening enough. So what are excuses that are getting in our way? I'm going to share just a couple of excuses with you that I've heard from people. And I want you to make a mental note if you're like, oh yeah, that kind of sounds like me. And I also want you to be real transparent with yourself and honest, and maybe identify some other excuses or roadblocks that are getting in your way of creating more joy through gratitude. All right, here's the first one. Why should I have to? And this is one, I put this in my book 5 years ago. It just came up again yesterday. One of the people who was in my digital course, the deep dive, said, well, isn't that what their paycheck is for? And I said, okay, fair. Yes, they get paid to do their work. So why should you have to? And the truth is, you don't. You don't have to express gratitude to anyone. You have that right. However, if you want to create more joy, this is a way to do it. And here's the thing about human behavior. We respond, we're kind of like puppies. We respond really well to positive reinforcement. So if you're my boss or you're my coworker and you notice that I worked really hard on something to get it to you on time, and you notice that and you appreciate it and you tell me, well, guess what's going to happen the next time you need something from me? I'm going to work really hard to get it to you on time. And when I'm getting you what you need, you feel joy. And when you're telling me you appreciate, I gave you what you needed, I get to feel joy too. So that's one excuse. Here's a second excuse. I'm too busy. And I'll say, absolutely, people are busy. Very, very rarely in the work I do I find someone in the workplace who says, Jeannette, boy, I really wish I got more emails, or I really wish I had more projects assigned to me. People are busy, but the reason gratitude can feel difficult and that we're too busy is because it's just not a habit, because it really doesn't take long to do. And I'll give you an example of the person I mentioned who is in my digital course, because it isn't a habit for this person. And because they're kind of getting over that mindset of why should I have to thank someone? Isn't that what their paycheck is for? I said, pick 3 note cards or 5 note cards or Post-its, whatever you want. And on Monday morning, I want you to put them on your desk. And by the end of the week, those need to be gone. And what you're going to do is write down something you appreciate about someone on your team or someone you work with. You can do all of them in one day. You can do one per day. It's totally up to you. But it was a visual to help her create that habit. So those are just a couple of excuses. I have a lot more I could share with you, but I'd love for you to share in the chat If you have any excuses that are getting in your way of capitalizing on all of the opportunities in front of you to use gratitude to create more joy. And I'll just watch the chat. And Pragya, if you see any that I miss, go ahead and just shout them out. Let me know. And if none come in, because sometimes it's, it's hard to think of these. Another one that I hear, challenge to find the right words to say. Okay, thank you, Angie, for that. Yeah, you know what? Some words are better than no words. And if you're going to express it verbally, say, you know what? I'm not sure the right words to say. That's okay. Let's see. Sometimes I forget. I hear that one too. I forget. So I'll hear, well, hasn't the time passed? The moment's never passed. You can still capitalize on it. Colleagues who don't carry their weight. Start with the small thing, Laura, the smallest thing you can find, and try to appreciate, even if it's, you know what, thanks for being honest that you didn't get it done. Okay, so there are so many more coming in, but I want to make sure I get the rest of this because I only get 15 minutes with you. So what I want to move to is some of the research. This came out of University of California, and they found that gratitude is an influencer of societal functioning. So think of your team at work as a micro society. And what has happened is it influences our collective well-being. And this is directly tied to employee engagement. And engaged employees are happier employees. They are more joyful. And there are 3 psychological needs to human motivation. And one of those is connectedness or relatedness. So we're able to help motivate people by expressing more gratitude or using our gratitude G factor. Another piece of research that supports this is that when we say thank you to someone or we make employee recognition a priority, and saying thank you actually isn't quite enough, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But when we make the effort to express gratitude, there's a 14% increase in employee engagement and productivity. And if you're to do the math, 14% of a work week is about 5.6 hours more productivity by making gratitude a priority in the way that you lead or in the way that you work with people. All right, here's the last piece of research I'm going to share with you. Martin Seligman is known as the father of positive psychology. He did an experiment with his students, and he had them write and personally deliver a letter of gratitude. These students did not email it. They did not text it, nor did they pop it in the mail with a stamp on it. They actually personally delivered it. And this is what happened. There was a huge increase in happiness scores. Those happiness scores were not just for the people who received the letter of gratitude. They were for the people who wrote and personally delivered it as well. So when you express gratitude, happiness goes up for other people and it goes up for you too. It's a win-win. So I want to give you just a note here in the last couple of minutes of where to start with gratitude. If you've heard of the 5 love languages, that has been researched in the workplace and turned into this book called The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. It's the same 5 as in the love languages, if you're familiar with that book, but they show up a little bit differently. And I'm going to just give you the one that's probably going to give you the biggest bang for your buck because it is the most popular, and that is words of affirmation. So if you're going to start anywhere today with expressing gratitude, I want you to start with words of affirmation, and here's why. 45% of people, almost half of the people you work with, will have this as a primary language of appreciation. But when you do it, be very genuine, heartfelt, mean it, but be specific. So when I said earlier that simple thank you isn't enough, I want you to dig in a little bit more and say, I appreciate or I thank you because. And I want you to finish that statement so it can be very specific. So whoever you're expressing the gratitude to knows what behavior to exhibit, to perpetuate. And you can do this really in 2 aspects. One is encouraging people, like, yes, I think you should go for that. Yes, I think you can figure that out. good for you, or recognizing the work that they're doing or the effort that they're making. It doesn't have to be perfect. But if somebody's stepping outside of their comfort zone, if they're trying something new, if they're being brave and asking a question, affirm them, because that is gratitude. All right, so as I close here, this is just the tip of the iceberg with gratitude. That is one of the 8 secrets of increasing your gravitational pull at work, or one of the 8 G factors. That's why I offer the free G factor assessment, because I want you to be able to dig in and see maybe where your G factors are high and maybe where they are low. And then I would love it if you want to keep in touch with me, reach out to me. You have a QR code there that you can use that will get you to all of these places, or you can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter or my business Facebook page. But LinkedIn is where you'll probably see me the most, because I'm always trying to share content out there to help people create more joy, to help leaders be the leaders that everyone wants to work with, and just create awesome workplaces where people want to be. So with that, in my last few minutes, I want to ask Pragya, what type of questions came in that I might be able to answer?
Yeah, we have a couple of questions in the app and one over here. So I'll start out with the one in the app. How do you emphasize or increase your own gravitational pull? It's a big one.
Well, you practice it. So for example, with gratitude, you start making it a daily practice. So that it becomes a behavior that is very natural to you. The other ways that you can emphasize or increase it, of course, is my mini course. You can get the book. You can, on LinkedIn, I'm writing a lot, or in my newsletter, I share articles on G Factor. So you get a lot of nuggets there. The Leadership Deep Dive course is probably one of the best ways where you really dig in and do, I would say that class is about 20 hours of work. So it's a really, really hardy class.
Another question, is empathy a G factor?
Is empathy a G factor? Well, no, because it doesn't start with G, it starts with E. But if it depends on how you define empathy. There is another G factor that's called generosity, and it's about showing kindness and concern. So I think that can be very, very closely aligned with empathy. And all of these G factors are really about connecting with people and people skills, because it's not the paycheck that makes us loyal. It's not the paycheck that makes us stay or do our best work. It's the people we work for that inspire us to do our best work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Last question. What if nobody appreciates me?
Say that again, Pragya.
What if nobody appreciates me?
What if nobody appreciates you? There's a G factor called Gather G factor, and it's about who surround yourself with people who ooze G factor. You do not have the right people in your circle if nobody appreciates you. So there's some work to be done about who you're surrounding yourself with, and how do we set better boundaries so that the people we are with do appreciate us. And let me say this about appreciation. It isn't just telling us what we want to hear. It's people who are invested enough to be honest with us, and for us to be grateful, to show gratitude that when people are brave and tell us something that's difficult for them to say and difficult for us to hear, that we receive that openly.
Absolutely. Well, those were the questions, and I think we're right on time. So thank you, Jeannette. Absolutely, absolutely loved your session. And with that, it's going to be Amy next.